I think you're sleeping. Just come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Today's show is also being brought to you in part by JKJ Boxing Magazine. Their new issue is out. You want a free copy? I'll hook you up, man. Visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the JKJ Boxing Magazine cover. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage, The Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now, where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of it right now by visiting BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Now, listen, if you're looking to get a signed copy, don't worry about it. I'll hook you up. Just visit our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section. All the directions will be in there. And while you're in there, check out some of the other great books we have under the book club section. Programming note, we are doing a live show, obviously, today, because here we are. You know what they say, wherever you're going, there you are, and we're here. We're also doing a show on Wednesday of this week, but we will not be doing a show this week on Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. We return on Tuesday, August 2nd. I will be covering a live NASCAR event in the Poconos. So it's my first time doing that, so I'll fill you guys in when we get back. But just programming note, we are doing a live show today and Wednesday. We'll be back on Tuesday, August 2nd, which is a week from tomorrow. So it'll give you a chance to catch up on all of the shows you might have missed. And speaking of shows, we did our Billy C. post-fight show, Terrence Crawford, Victor Postal. If you missed it, it's up on YouTube right now. We got a couple of emails to read. I got the fight results to talk about. Today's main topic, and we may open up the phone lines today for a little while. Today's main topic is, in lieu of the fight, Terrence Crawford, and you guys know I'm a big fan of Terrence Crawford. His fight against Victor Postal this past Saturday night, which was a unification fight, and for all intent purposes, Terrence Crawford put on a great show, dominating Victor Postal for the most part for the entire fight. But his choice of safety first, which seems to be the new norm in boxing today. Fighters that can excitingly stop an opponent choose not to. The fans are there to see it, but they choose not to. And I'm not going to knock a fighter for looking out for his own safety and his future, etc., etc. However, maybe their decision of this particular sport was the wrong one to begin with if their idea is safety first. As a result, sports that fall under the MMA, mixed martial arts, specifically the UFC, they're kicking the sport of boxing's ass. And the reason is because safety first is the last thing from their mind. When push comes to shove, whether the fans like long fights or short fights, tall fighters or short fighters, brawlers or boxers, the bottom line is combat sports fans like action. They like excitement. They like fights that listen, I'll call a spade a spade. Fans like brutality. It's a vicious mental way to look at it, but it's the facts. That's why people tune in. Don't let anyone else kid you if they say otherwise. So the end result is MMA, specifically the UFC, is kicking boxing's ass across the board. This is one league, UFC, that is single-handedly kicking the living shit out of the sport of boxing, and the primary reason is because boxers choose safety first. I personally feel Terrence Crawford, one of my favorite fighters, chose the safety first route on Saturday night. He could have easily, it appeared to me, he could have put Victor Postal down and out and chose the safety route. So don't complain that boxing's dying if you support safety first for the fighters. Don't get me wrong. I support safety for the fighters in terms of their health. But from the overall game plan, listen, you got to go out there. Learn better defense. Avoid getting hit. There's your safety parameter. Joining me right now, Sal Rocky Senecola. Safety first, Sal. You and I have talked about it many, many times off the air. I think it's got, I gave it a lot of thought after the fight Saturday night. I think it's killing the sport, man.
Well, I took off my safety vest. So, that's, I'll tell you. I don't know if that was the case, but I'd like to see any comments or remarks from the Crawford camp that may come out as why he didn't close in when he had a couple of opportunities to go for the finishing kill right there and the combinations. Because if he got that close to punching combinations, he would have been close enough to get hit. And that might be it. I mean, maybe he got tagged with one of the right hands that Postal.
Let me read you a quote. Let me read you a post-fight quote from Terrence Crawford.
Okay.
I hope everyone enjoyed the fight. What can I say? I feel great. I wanted him to throw the right. That's why I fought him in the southpaw stance, so I could counterpunch him. I just chose to box today, and I just wanted to have fun. I could have pressed the gas, but why? I had him frustrated.
Well, there you go. That says it right there. Really?
Yeah, that's his comment. So he clearly is stating whether he was using that as an excuse why he couldn't take Postal out, or if it was in fact the truth that he chose safety first is yet to be seen. I interpret it as he chose safety first, like a lot of fighters do. And listen, it's a tough topic, Sal, because
no, it is.
I don't want to sound like, hey, you got to risk your life in the ring, but in a sense, and you've said it yourself. Being a former professional fighter, you said it yourself that, when you make the decision to choose to become a fighter, you know the risks that you're taking on. You know every time that bell rings that you have the risk of being maimed, hurt permanently, or even killed, and so does your opponent. I mean, it is what it is, Well,
that's so true. And you know what? Those are the inherent risks of the sport of boxing and other rough sports that you never know. And it's like the old saying, hey, tonight's not your night. It's not my night. You don't know what night is going to be your night, what night's going to be your night, and what night might have your number called. You never know. It's a rough business. And, thinking back at some of the shock appeal, even early on movies, when you were talking about MMA and all the other stuff. I mean, you remember the old, I think James Caan was in a movie called Rollerball back in the 70s or 60s. When they were brutalizing on a whole roller derby concept. And then, what's that one when Arnold Schwarzenegger, Richard Dawson, when they're battling to the end they let these guys go through some kind of obstacle course, and they're being hunted literally. And those are some of the shock appeals that MMA has, and it's risky. And MMA has, the safety first issue is not a question.
No, wait a minute. MMA and UFC, they clearly don't have safety first because, no. I mean, if you're allowed to, one of the reasons I don't like MMA is like, and I go all the way back to the era in which Tom Molyneux, my book, the guy that I wrote about, in his era, in boxing's infancy, the one rule, you couldn't hit a guy when he's down. I mean, and MMA and UFC, whatever, you're allowed to hit the guy when he's down. So right off the bat, if you throw everything else out the window and the fact that you're allowed to hit your opponent while he's on the ground or on the mat, whatever you want to call it, to me, that clearly indicates that safety first is not number one. I mean, once you hit a guy when he's down, I mean, they're vulnerable to the max, I would think, don't you?
Oh yeah, once you're in defensive posture, you're in a position, you're down, you're looking to cover and to conceal and just be alive if you're down on the ground like that.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. Listen, I love Terrence Crawford.
Me too. He's a great fighter.
Great fighter. And he can
boxes, he can punch, he has it all.
Yeah, he's got good defense. He's elusive.
Yeah.
I just, his decision to, I mean, listen, you're always hearing at least the good trainers telling their fighters, finish the show. And what that means is put your guy out, put him down, show the fans that you are the best. This is a unification fight.
You're so funny because I just remember one fight I was in, and Richie Giacchetti said the same thing. Come on, Sal, pick it up and put this guy out.
Yeah, finish it. Finish the show.
Yeah.
Put an exclamation point on this fight. And his exclamation, I saw on social media, and Dax Khan's going to be joining us here in about 20 minutes or so to give us an update on social media. But I saw on social media a lot of people were critical of Terrence Crawford sticking his tongue out and doing his little shuffle and the old bolo punch type thing with the wind-up. That doesn't bother me. That's funny. That kind of stuff really doesn't bother me. I know you don't like it, but it doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is the fact that in his mind, and him being Terrence Crawford, that was the exclamation on his fight when he could have went after him. Listen, by the 8th round, Sal, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Terrence Crawford could do what he wanted to Victor Postal. And Harold Letterman said it best. He says, hey, I can see this guy looks like he could take out Postal whenever he wants. He's just choosing not to. And, I don't know. Is that the smart move? Maybe so. Maybe I'm wrong. But the truth of the matter is for the good of the sport, for the longevity of the sport of boxing, it isn't going to last. And these fighters that are taking this route, in a way, it's a tough thing. And the word I'm going to say is pretty crazy because you could combat me either way, but it's kind of being selfish. Are you being selfish to the sport, or do you want to protect yourself? If it's me and my family, I want to protect myself. I mean, everybody does, But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the overall condition of the sport, it ain't going to survive, Sal. It's not going to continue on. People are just not going to want to watch a fight that they know that somebody's not going to end up with their ass knocked out.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to see fighters that choose that route, and that still, if they have the inherent gift like Terrence Crawford, God talent, that he can outbox and do what he did, because he did a masterful job there.
He did.
I would put myself in the corner of each fighter. We had a caller that called in the other night. I don't know if it was Alex or Joey from, and he asked me a question. What would I have said to Postal? And you gotta electrify your fighter. If he's not in that fight, he's this guy from the 6th round on. Postal should have been letting it all hang out, unless he was just satisfied with getting a decision against himself, which no fighter is in a fight to lose. But he should have had a little bit more oomph, a little more, could I say, pee and vinegar. I think it could have came from the corner to charge him. Hey, you're going to lose this fight. You got to get out there. I want you to throw that right hand behind that left, and because he kept that right hand cocked by his face all night, and even if he threw it out there, boom, just to let him know he's going to come back with a combination or something, he kept it idle. There was nothing. There was no offense. He tried. He surmounted maybe a few combinations, but nothing that followed up, and he just got outboxed.
Well, Freddie Roach did tell him you're losing the fight, but he had to say it through an interpreter. We talked about that on the post-fight show, and some of the ramifications that fighters and trainers have when they really can't communicate one-on-one. I mean, that's got to be tough, but great performance. I'll get to that in a second. We got a couple of emails. Jesse says, Billy Murat looked good. He has a powerful right hand, but must learn to move his head and feet. I agree. He says, what is next for Oscar? Will he get Salido or Walters? I don't know. I mean, yes, he looked good this past weekend and dominating and destroying his opponent in 2. But Salido or Walters is a significant, huge. I mean, huge. Forget significant, huge step up. I know he's got a belt, but he's gonna have to. I don't know. This whole sport, she's a changing so much. I personally, I don't think he's ready for that much of a jump up. But hey, I'm beginning to wonder if I even know this sport anymore. My man
Bill.
Joe, what's that?
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
My man Joel says, I really enjoyed the post-fight show. With the win, Terrence Crawford, would you like to see him get a big money fight against Pacquiao in the fall or go up to 147 and target a guy like Errol Spence down the road? What's your thoughts? Terrence Crawford pretty much could go wherever he wants. I mean, depending upon how the numbers were, will determine where he sits in terms of pay-per-view. I think if I'm the promoter, Sal, and I did a pay-per-view, regardless of whether these numbers did well or not, I think a fight with Manny Pacquiao might get him to that point, win, lose, or draw, that he is indeed a pay-per-view fighter. It might help his career financially down the road, but I don't know. As far as Errol Spence, if Terrence Crawford feels comfortable fighting at 147, he did go all the way up to 150. 157 on fight night, which gives me reason to believe that he would have a comfortable time at 147. But it's still a big jump up from where he started. But those kinds of fights are all available for Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, the Keith Thurmans, the Shorten Porters, etc., etc., etc. I think that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to go in that direction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's going to go up and he's going to go in that direction because, he's a lean guy. He's going to fill out. How old is he right now?
He's only 28, but he's short.
Yeah.
He's 5'8". So I think
easy.
I know I'm 5'8"
right.
too, but my
5'8",
point,
not that short.
But my point is that my point is that if Victor he woulda, coulda, shoulda. If Victor Postal was able to get his jab going, maybe it's a different fight. But then again, if he knew how to cut the ring off, maybe he could have employed his jab. Terrence Crawford was very successful at moving and neutralizing Victor Postal's jab, which ultimately prevented Victor from unleashing his right hand. Would that be the case as he moves up in 147 and continues to face, bigger guys? So we'll have to see what goes on. Was that you or was that me?
I thought I heard a train in your background.
Oh, maybe that's you, because I don't have any. I'm nowhere near a train. All right, no, because we already lost power today for no reason.
I have a train outside my window once in a while.
It's the little train that could, isn't it? A little train that could. Let me get the.
It's still up. It used to go around my Christmas tree.
Let's get some. Put the little tablets in it, right?
Hey, I still have my Christmas tree up. I have a Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Yeah. Well, then keep watering it. Maybe it'll grow. Let's just go through some of the fights real quick. Like we're talking about, Terrence Crawford improved to 29-0 with 20 knockouts when he won a one-sided 12-round decision over Victor Postal in a unification junior welterweight fight on Saturday night. It was on from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas on pay-per-view. The three judges scored it as follows: 2 at 118-107, and 1 at 117-108. I scored at 118-107 as well. Victor Postal loses his first fight. He's now 28-1. Nothing really exciting happened in that fight, with the exception of Crawford dominating the fight. I mean, no one really seemed to get hurt, although Victor Postal did hit the canvas twice, but both of them weren't from damaging punches. They were from, I don't know,
flash knockdowns.
Flash, caught off balance.
Tell you, that's when I thought he would finish him or try to finish him. He had an opportunity several times, and the fifth round was big. He still had about a good minute left, and as you said, he just took the foot off the pedal and didn't do it.
Yeah, Well, hey, they're waiting for you to get on board, Sal. I mean, I read the quote from Crawford, but I'll read it again. He says, after the fight, I hope everybody enjoyed the fight. What can I say? I feel great. I wanted to throw the right, and that's why I fought in the southpaw stance so I could counter him. I just boxed today, and I wanted to have fun. I could have pressed the gas, but why? I had him frustrated.
He did.
I think, I think this pretty much sums up what I'm saying. Safety first. This is what boxing has become. That's great for the fighters, and I'm not going to criticize on that. But just like I criticize people that say I'm not going to make an excuse, but, and then here comes the excuse. I'm not going to criticize, but here comes the criticization, or here comes me criticizing them. It's not what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of watching fighters engage and seeing action. So if this is what boxing's become, maybe I'll stick to NASCAR. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Bill, one comment though. The one fight that we saw before then, the semi-windup, Oscar Valdez and Matias Runda. I mean, that was a classic. There were these guys. They met in the middle of the ring. They stayed in a pocket. They were firing their guns. I could see early on that Oscar Valdez, as he was punishing his opponent with the left of the body, staying in a pocket, catching him with good shots, and he took some good shots too in those exchanges.
Well, that's my point.
And that was a 2-round fight. But that's some of the action, some of the reason why boxing will sustain and will go through their periods, but still have the interest. Because that was a great 2-round fight.
It was, and that's my whole point, Sal. My point is that that's the fight that sticks out in your mind because it was on you were on the edge of your seat and you were like, oh my God, I love this crap.
This is a fight.
This is a fight, and this is my point. Okay, every fight that if you close your eyes and think of some great fights that, not ones you were in, but some great fights that you recall watching, they're all going to be like that. You're never going to remember one of those. Technical fights that went on round after round, the same thing. Oh yeah, what great, this and that. You're not going to remember that. Even great boxers, a la Sugar Ray Leonard and Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson. The fights you remember are the exciting, killer, knockdown, drag out fights. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. It is what it is. This is sport, and it is what it is.
And you're talking about, what can your trainer say to you in the corner? And it's the moments of some big fights that really stick out in your mind. And here we are, almost 30 years later. I still remember when Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting Tommy Hearns, and he was actually down in the fight. And I think it was the 14th round or 15th round, and Angelo Dundee said, you're blowing it, Ray. You want to win this fight, get out there and finish it. And sure enough, Sugar Ray Leonard, boom. The next round he went out there, did what he had to do to unleash a powerful combination that put Tommy Hearns down and out.
That's the difference, though, Sal. A guy like Sugar Ray Leonard, a guy like Tommy Hearns, a guy like Muhammad Ali, a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson. I could go on and on.
I know.
Those fighters,
we could do that.
But those fighters definitely had the boxing ability. They had the ability to be safety first for their whole careers, but they chose not to. They chose to engage listen, the right way to do it is to break your opponent down until he can't be dangerous to you anymore, and then go in for the kill. That's like the way it is.
A fish.
That's the way it is. Play it. Good analogy. FYI, a big one. FYI, Terrence Crawford made $1.3 million for that fight. Somebody was asking me that the other day. It was released after the divvy up, the way the titles worked. Crawford made $1.3 million. Victor Postal, under $1 million, $675,000. Also on that card, the fight that Sal is talking about, Oscar Valdez improved to 21-0 with 18 knockouts when he took care of business against Matias Rudia, who loses for the first time in his career. Second round stoppage, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. A couple of vicious body shots ended that fight. Rudia looked like a deer in headlights from the opening bell. Also on that card, Jose Benavidez improved to 24-0 with 16 knockouts when he took care of Francisco Santana, who drops to 24 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. I personally think Santana squeaked out that victory, and it had nothing to do with his gorgeous wife that I couldn't keep my eyes off of every time they put the camera on her. But nonetheless, the scores were 96-94, which I would have lived with if that was across the board. One was 98-92, and the third judge inexplicably had the score 100-90, in a sense giving every round to Jose Benavidez versus Francisco Chia Santana, which I thought was an outrage for judging. But nonetheless, Benavidez remains undefeated. And also in the light heavyweight division, Olandir Gozvik improved to 11-0 with 9 knockouts when he took care of Tommy Carpensy. Not sure exactly to right now what happened to Carpensy, but he got busted up pretty bad in his nose. He was complaining about his eye, and he took a knee and waited to be counted out at officially 2 minutes and 21 seconds of the 6th round to give Godzdik the win there. Also on Saturday, which I got to be honest, I just want to say this. You know, I've been critical of the PBC for several reasons, but there's been a lot of positivity about the PBC. Well, they had a card on NBC Sports Channel on Saturday night. The main event was the brother of Marcos Maidana, and that's Fabian Maidana, and he was the main event. He improved to 10-0 with 7 knockouts over Jorge Mayosanet, which gave him a pretty tough fight. Mayosanet drops to 13-2 in the welterweight division. What I'm saying is, this particular card, if you hadn't had a chance to watch it, is what I think the PBC model should have been. I think they should have set up themselves and just blew us away with these types of cards with fighters that had 10, 12, 15 fights, and then come back with a pay-per-view like the Thurman Porter fight. The model would have been much more profitable across the board, not just for Al Heyman. I loved this card. All 3 fights were very entertaining, like this one. The co-main event, Alan Castano improved to 11-0 with 7 knockouts when he won by decision over Aaron Garcia, who drops to 15-6-1. All 3 judges scored at 78-74. And Brandon Figueroa improved to 9-0 with 6 knockouts when he scored a third-round stoppage over Alberto Zorrilla, who loses for only the second time in his career. He's 6-2. Also on Friday, we got to see some decent fights in the super bantamweight division. Adam Lopez and Roman Reynoso fought a very entertaining fight at Foxwoods in Connecticut. The end result, a draw. 96-94, one judge scored it for Lopez. 97-93, one judge scored it for Reynoso. And the plant judge scored it 95-95, giving this fight a draw. I personally thought Reynoso squeaked out that win. In the super middleweight division, Jerry Odom was actually the underdog. He knocked out Julius Jackson, the son of Julian Jackson, to improve to 14-2-1. Jackson drops to 19-2. Rolando Chilla improved to 13 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw when he won an 8-round decision over the favorite Oshaki Foster, who loses now for the second time in his career. 79-73, 78-74, both for Chilla, and one judge had it 77-75 for Foster. But in a fight that shocked a lot of people, and most people got this wrong in our challenge, in the super welterweight or junior middleweight division, whatever you like to look at, Ian Green improved to 10-1 with 8 knockouts when he knocked out the favorite in this fight, Kerry Gary, who loses for the first time in his career at 2 minutes and 50 seconds of the second round. Ian Green was a late substitute in this fight, brought in a week before, and Gray, who was supposed to put on a show, got carried off and was extremely bummed out after that. So that's what took place in the boxing world over the weekend. One thing I do want to make note of, there was a fight that took place in Ohio, in Toledo, that put a fighter in the hospital. He was unresponsive and got sent to the hospital. His name was Tommy Baganoso, and the facts with him was, luckily, he was fighting, and there were a lot of EMT people on the scene, which began CPR. And as I know, I think he's in decent condition. I don't know anything better than that as of this morning. But anyway, that's what took place inside the squared circle Friday and Saturday. Joining us right now is Dax Khan with some social media news. What's up, Dax?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Dax.
I'm ready for another hot, humid week here in New York. Well, Sal, you always
Yeah,
got
you
that
see what
temperature
George
there.
is about, boy. I'll tell you.
So what do you got? What do you got cooking in social media?
And we got a few social media things, and then a little bit of talk about the two big fights this weekend, which are very exciting. There's a lot of talk about the two fights this weekend. We really don't know what's going to be exciting and what isn't. But as far as social media, there's still a lot of reaction to Saturday night's fight against Crawford and Victor Postal. First thing is, a lot of people are in agreement that Victor Postal, if he's going to bounce back and he is going to be able to get into any sort of position to make himself a fighter who can once again be credible, he has to leave Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach right now has become known among not only fans but inside the boxing circles as a sort of a plague for fighters.
But what did he do? How can people blame? I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to know, how can people blame Freddie Roach every time? And I'm not, let me just say this, Dax, you know more than anybody, I'm not a big Freddie Roach fan. There's a lot of reasons I don't like Freddie Roach, and some of them have nothing to do with boxing. But the truth of the matter is let's be real. Freddie Roach was telling the kid the right stuff in the corner. He wasn't reacting, whether he just couldn't get it done or whether that interpretation, because he had to have a guy, another interpreter, relaying what Freddie was saying to him. Maybe that was lost in translation, but how can fans get on Freddie for that loss?
Well, it's not just fans. There's people in the sport of boxing too. Look at Freddie's track record as of late. All the fighters that Freddie's had, including Manny Pacquiao, all the momentum that that they've built up, and whenever these big fights come, things just don't seem to work out. And Freddie in the corner really does nothing different. Freddie does the same things all the time. The corners have become kind of disorganized. This isn't the only corner where Freddie relays through an interpreter to his fighters. And inside the gym, from what I understand is, Freddie really, aside from only teaching the same thing, he doesn't, one style. Freddie is an offensive base type trainer. But, Freddie really, he doesn't spend a lot of time with the fighters, and so pretty much, fight night is the only time that Freddie's with the fighters 100%. And it really hurts not only does it hurt the fighters, mentally, but it also hurts that dynamic inside the ring, where people need to communicate in between rounds. So, there's a lot of factors there that I have to agree when you look at not only the top names, but a lot of his prospects. I just think Freddie Roach, at one point in time, was a great trainer, but now, whether or not he's just lost his interest in his fighters or his health is become an issue, it's time for him, step aside, or for these fighters to say, listen, Freddie was a great trainer, not no more.
Well, listen, Kevin Rooney, all right, who's a friend of mine, personal friend, he was a great trainer when he had Mike Tyson because his style meshed perfectly with Mike Tyson. But Kevin never was successful with any other fighter. He had limited success, but never once did he get back to that level that he was with Mike Tyson. Couldn't we say the same about Freddie Roach? Freddie Roach found a guy that complemented his style perfectly with Manny Pacquiao. But, you can't teach all the fighters the same thing. Maybe the powers that be overrated Freddie from day one. I just don't think that, as much as I agree with Freddie Roach being overrated and all those things, because I'm not a big fan, I don't think that this particular fight has to be. I don't think the blame can be put on Freddie. I think Victor Postal's inability to cut off the ring. If Freddie Roach is the guy that's responsible for teaching him how to cut off the ring, that's pretty dangerous. I mean, Sal, we talked on the post-fight show, Dax. That was one of the questions I asked Sal. Sal says, I learned that in the amateurs. Of course you do.
I told you the name of the fighter, everything. Wilfredo Marcano from Patterson. He was the first fighter I went in after he gave my first defeat as an amateur, after I won the Golden Gloves, after I won this and that. And he just totally outboxed me. I didn't know what the heck to do. He couldn't break an egg, but he outpointed me. And I went to school. I studied. I talked about, because I wanted a rematch. And sure enough, in the rematch, I cut the ring off on him, and I knocked him out.
Well, that's the point. You know, the first things you learn in the gym, and Dax knows. Dax has trained fighters. He's been around the gym.
We drive guys crazy with that. We drove them crazy, the young fighters in the gym. Long before coaches in the chat room, I know I've had this discussion with him, and we discussed it on the show before. Long before, you go in there and you start your sparring, you got to get your basic fundamentals. You're moving around, you're shadow boxing in the mirrors and that. And we would drive kids crazy, making them just do these drills inside the ring on, moving around. And, at some point in time, we'd have these kids that would do these bad habits with that back foot. We would actually sit there and put ankle weights on them, on that back foot. So this way they couldn't take it off the canvas and hop around there. And this way they would, get off balance and they wouldn't know how to pivot their body properly, and they would hate us for it. But something, when it came time to be in the competition and they had to cut off that ring, and they realized that they were able to turn their body well, keep that foot planted behind them, and throw that punch with a lot of power and make it actually do some damage. They thanked us later on, but those are things that you have to work on. And even in the pros, we see that habit. It is a bad habit, and there's only a few guys in this game that know how to cut off that ring properly.
Well, the bottom line, as an amateur, as a kid, the first two things you basically learn in the gym is throw and jab and how to cut the ring off. Those are the first two things. But anyway, finish up with the social media. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but I just don't think that it's, in this business, a lot of people blame things that they shouldn't. I mean, listen, I'm giving Terrence Crawford all the credit in the world, but I also, the criticism is that he chose to be safety first, and I think that is killing the sport of boxing. I have my reasons and who I blame, but the truth of the matter is it's killing the sport. We're not going to regain. We're not getting back to where we were. I hate to say it, but go ahead, finish your social media.
Oscar Valdez scored a sensational second-round stoppage over Ruda this weekend, and now everybody is already, they've been hinting at it for quite some time, but everybody is already screaming that Oscar Valdez versus Vasyl Lomachenko has to happen next. That would be a great, there's some bad blood. I think Vasyl Lomachenko scored a win over Valdez back in 2009 at the World Championships in Milan. So, look for that to be a huge fight coming up within the next 2 years if it gets made through Top Rank. And that is something right there that, could more than likely be a pay-per-view headline debut for Vasyl Lomachenko, but we'll see. But right now, people are calling for that one. Not even 24 hours after Valdez won that title, everybody wanted to see that fight.
Yeah, I know. Now, they were talking about that fight night, but I know I'm contradicting myself, but Valdez, I mean, that was a great fight, but Rudia, it was one of those cases where the guy gets moved up to a number 2 spot to they fight for a vacant title. I just don't know if Valdez is ready, but I guess the chips have to fall where they will, right?
Either way, to be exciting, and you know what? They're both kind of running out of opponents right now. Well, especially Lomachenko, running out of opponents right now. Vasyl Lomachenko, for as skilled as he is, other than the real diehard boxing fans, nobody knows who Vasyl Lomachenko is.
Right. So what else, man? What else did you uncover?
Word is on August 21st, and this is going to be a big fight, in my opinion, and it would actually outsell the main event, that Heather Hardy and Shelly Vincent are finally going to face off. This has been brewing for a couple of years, a big East Coast rivalry, with the females. Heather down from New York, Shelly up from Rhode Island, both undefeated. They are supposedly, from what I understand, going to be on the undercard of the Errol Spence and Leonard Bundu fight over at the Barclays Center. This fight, if it is definitely made. In my opinion, the promoters need to jump on this and start promoting it more, because right now there's not a lot of buzz for Errol Spence and Leonard Bundu, but Shelley Vincent and Heather Hardy, especially Heather Hardy, are on fire right now, and they should be promoting this, and it will sell more tickets for that event than Spence and Bundu will. And this is also something that is that could be huge for women's boxing on the East Coast. We have seen the ladies, when not only just Hardy and Vincent on a lot of the undercard of the PBCs, but if this fight goes off well, and the way the two of them fight, it's going to be a fan-friendly fight. They know no other way to fight. This is something where we can possibly see the females headlining TV cards here, due to the fact that the promoters will see, they can bring in the money. And that is something that, female boxing has needed for a long time, and I'm hoping that this goes off that way. A lot of people, not only in boxing, but a lot of fans are excited for this, and it's what's been building up for a long time, and we need to see it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think women's boxing has even taken a step back. I admit,
for me.
Yeah,
No,
and I do admit that what Dax is saying is true. I mean, these two fighters could make a good fight, but I look at Heather Hardy as being grossly overrated. She better watch it if she gets in there with Shelley Vincent. Shelley Vincent is a tough fighter and might really take it to Heather Hardy. To me, she's like Maureen Shea.
Too good in her last few fights.
Well, she's Maureen Shea. I mean, Maureen Shea was a good-looking woman, came out and fought, and when they put her in with the proverbial punching bag, she did well. Anytime she fought a real fighter, she lost. Heather Hardy really hasn't been in there yet with a real fighter. If she steps in the ring with Shelley Vincent, that'll be a true test. And Shelley Vincent has been in some wars, and if I'm Heather Hardy, I better be ready for that one, and we'll see what happens.
Shelley Vincent's also 37 years old. She's fighting at a weight that she shouldn't be fighting at. Shelley Vincent can actually afford to drop down 2 weight classes. I like her. She has an exciting style, but she really hasn't been in there tough. She does have a good fan base, but again, this is something that I just think would be great for the aspect of the sport. The fight itself is going to be nothing but a brawl, in my opinion, but it is something that, definitely boxing needs a lot more of. Now, one thing on social media, let's talk about, it's kind of a sad story here, and that's, Ricardo Mayorga. Ricardo Mayorga right now is in some bad shape. Last time we seen him, he was a hand-picked opponent for Shane Mosley on some sort of pay-per-view. But right now, Ricardo Mayorga, with his alcohol and drug problem, he's broke, he's bankrupt, he's sleeping on the streets. He's lost everything. I've seen some pictures recently of him, literally looking like a hobo, passed out drunk with a cigarette in his hand, burning his fingers, people walking by throwing stuff at him. And, what really bothers me is, something, if this guy can manage to stay sober for a month, and he can manage to get himself down to, even like a super middleweight, there's a promoter out there who will actually get this guy in the ring and allow him to be a punching bag. I hope nobody does, and I hope this guy really cleans up his act. It's a shame to see a fighter who, less than 7-8 years ago, literally had millions of dollars, and now, he's an absolute homeless drug addict, and nobody out there really, it really seems to care. And that's a sad thing to see with any fighter in the sport, especially one like Mayorga, who was never great, but you know what? He was always an exciting fighter, and he was always willing to lay it all down, and there was never a boring Ricardo Mayorga fight.
Well, I think it's sad. I mean, might as well just say it. It's sad that any human being succumbs to, drug or alcohol addiction. I mean, and I think Ricardo Mayorga shows that it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a fighter, whether you're a world champion or whatever, it holds no boundaries. It shows no prejudice. Drug or alcohol addiction can affect anyone, and you have to be strong from the beginning to avoid it, and don't put yourself in those positions. It's that simple. Nobody's going to beat drugs or alcohol. Nobody's going to beat it, it's like father time and taxes. Those are the 3 things you can't beat, but
very good point.
This is true. Now, Chad Dawson, if Chad Dawson wasn't done as a viable name before, he certainly is now. He had a very solid opportunity to face Ilya Alvarez on the undercard of Adonis Stevenson and Thomas Williams Jr. Last week when I was on the show, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday. I actually finished out saying I was going over to their conference call. And 25 minutes, we waited on the phone, and then all of a sudden, the operator says, the call is canceled for today, and somebody will get in touch with you and let you know when the call is going to be rescheduled. The next day, we get a notice that Chad Dawson was injured, and then they had announced a new opponent for Ilya Alvarez, who I believe is going to be Robert Barrage at a catch weight of 180 pounds. This right here, not only does it hurt Chad Dawson, who was a man that, really fell far from grace. I don't think I've ever seen a fighter fall so quickly from the names of fans' mouths. This is a guy who 3-4 years ago was a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, and literally now nobody even wants to hear his name because Chad Dawson has become more headache than anything. Barrage, this will also hurt, Alvarez, because this was a chance for him to shine against a name on a PBC card, on the undercard of a light heavyweight title fight, and now he's going to fight a guy who, at a catchweight, who literally nobody knows. He already has 2 fights lined up himself, so this is going to be more of a showcase fight. No matter how well Alvarez does, is he going to be able to get any sort of credit for this? And it's going to hurt his career just as much as it's going to hurt Chad's. Chad Dawson might as well change his name from Bad Chad to the man with no name, because really nobody wants to hear the name Chad Dawson anymore. How can somebody fall so quickly from grace? And it's all on their own doing. Nobody else's fault. There's no promoter to blame. There is no politics to blame. There's no fight that he was robbed in. This is just Chad Dawson saying, you know what, I don't care enough to take the sport seriously, and he's wasting people's time. If you're not going to come in here, you're not going to fight, then you know what, let the people who are out there working hard, doing the right thing, get their time in the sun, instead of you always pulling out at the last minute.
Yeah, Bad Chad used to mean bad as in badass. Now it just means he's just bad. And I don't think he should continue on. What else you got for us, Dax?
This weekend's fights, the Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton fight, believe it or not, has just as much, and in certain places has more anticipation than the Terrence Crawford and Victor Postol fight did.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, I guess now in hindsight it doesn't surprise me because I was expecting a little more from Victor Postol. But hey, listen, once they announced the Leo Santa Cruz Carl Frampton fight, I couldn't wait for it. I mean, it's a big fight, and it's showcasing featherweights, which I love. We all know Leo Santa Cruz and his nonstop action, and Carl Frampton's been on U.S. TV a couple of times, so he's got a fan base. This ought to be a good one, Dax.
I think it's going to be a great fight, actually. The guys, they're all very similar, Bill, in what they do. They both rely on pressure and a fast pace. They both give their opponents very little time to breathe, and, ferocious combination punching on the inside is the key to their games. The only thing that I really see here that's going to be the I guess more or less the obstacle for Carl Frampton to overcome is going to be, I think he has, a 7 or an 8-inch reach disadvantage and almost a 3-inch height disadvantage. So that's going to be really odd to see if Leo Santa Cruz is able to stand on the outside and pump the jab instead of work on the inside, where I actually think that if Carl Frampton on the inside uses his combination punching and he crowds Leo Santa Cruz, he kind of has the advantage there, don't you think? I don't believe Leo Santa Cruz, who is a busy fighter, but he's not really a strong fighter and doesn't have, the power punches on the inside. He more or less overwhelms guys with volume, and that's what gets him the stoppages. Leo Santa Cruz could be in for a bigger fight than he's expecting here.
Leo Santa Cruz has a high energy and punch output. I think the key in this fight is going to be, can Carl Frampton counterpunch? Can he time Leo Santa Cruz? Can he get in between the punches and bunches that Leo Santa Cruz is going to throw? I mean, that's going to be the bottom line. Thankfully for Carl Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz does not generally use his height or reach advantage to box and keep distance and stuff like that. He fights one way. He comes right at you and wants to throw a lot of punches. So I think the burden is going to be on Carl Frampton, Dax.
Do you believe so? I believe that, we were just talking about footwork. I think footwork might play a huge key into this fight. Leo Santa Cruz is not exactly fleet-footed. Carl Frampton, we have seen him move around that ring quite nimbly. So is Leo Santa Cruz a guy who usually, he kind of plods around that ring more or less, and he crowds his opponents. Is he going to be able to cut off the ring on Carl Frampton, who, in my opinion, is going to move around quickly, kind of dart in there, let go of his combination, and make Leo Santa Cruz reset?
Hey, Sal. Is that odd for a fighter who generally would have an advantage, height and reach, not to utilize it, to just continue to be right in front of his opponent? I mean, is that something that is just a problem for the fighter, or should that burden have been on the trainer, or what?
Like classic example was what we just witnessed this weekend, and I think a fighter has to have his attributes, and he's got to utilize them, unless his opponent is negating that, and he's got to change his position. Like we said, there was no plan B in this fight. But yeah, fighter, I mean, he's given some God-given things, and you got to maximize the attributes and minimize the deficits in your style, in your game, and but make it versatile enough where you can change. If you have to box, you box. You have to start shuffling in and slipping punches, stepping in a pocket and cutting the ring off. You try and do that too. It doesn't matter your height or weight, but you got to be able to face both styles and be able to evolve into your own style so you can change it up.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, the ability to make adjustments to your game. And, you hear trainers all the time saying fight tall. For a tall fighter, fight taller, make it even more. When a tall fighter fights short, it's giving the shorter guy the advantage. Yeah, you make a great point, Dax, and it's going to be interesting. It's actually, although I looked forward to this fight, I really didn't look at it like that until you just mentioned, because Leo Santa Cruz does not really take advantage of what he's got in terms of a reach and height advantage in this particular fight. I think we're going to see the same Leo Santa Cruz. I think he's going to be coming at Carl Frampton. He's going to try to cut the ring off and outwork him.
Go ahead, Sal.
Sal, did you saying something, Sal?
I wasn't saying anything. I was just listening.
Oh.
I thought I heard somebody say something. I don't know. That was odd.
You hearing voices?
Yeah, he's got voices.
No,
in
it
boy.
It sounded like somebody was starting to say something. So that.
No, go ahead, Dax. No, it was breaking up. Go ahead.
I mean, that's Bill's mistake.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Adonis Stevenson Thomas Williams Jr. fight. Does anybody give Thomas Williams Jr. a chance this weekend?
Yeah, I do, because Adonis Stevenson is probably one of the most overrated fighters in the sport of boxing. I think that anyone that gets in the ring with Adonis Stevenson, regardless of where the fight is, has a chance. I've lost all respect for Adonis Stevenson. It wasn't because he was beating up women either, because I didn't have much respect for him for doing that anyway. But inside the ring, I've lost his respect. I've lost my respect for him as well.
Well, Adonis Stevenson, he's 30 years old. He's strong. He has a lot of power, and he's gotten better as a champion. We have seen him add more aspects to his game. Even since he's moved on with Javon Sugar Hill, we've seen a lot of new, I guess you want to say wrinkles, whatever word you want to use, to Adonis Stevenson, where he's able to come in, land that big punch, move out. He's no longer really does he have to rely on that one punch. But Thomas Williams Jr., he has a long jab. He's a decent counterpuncher. The only thing I wonder about is the chin. Now, remember, he was down in his last fight against, I think it was Humberto Sevien, a guy who's really a no-note. And even though Thomas Williams Jr. has gotten back up, is he going to be able to take that one-punch power of Stevenson? And Stevenson might only need that one punch. I think Thomas Williams Jr. might actually be ahead and have him and have that fight almost in the bag and end up getting caught. I don't know. I'm interested in this, but afterwards, I really think that regardless of who wins, that WBC title is going to have to make some serious movement, and not because of the fighters, but the WBC themselves are kind of starting to, realize that in the light heavyweight division, their title is rather stale. It's almost a meaningless title at that weight class.
Well, you say that he's shown some new points to his game, Adonis Stevenson, but Sal, can't you look and can't trainers showcase so-called talents when your level of opposition is lower? I mean, for a guy that's fighting less than stellar opposition, of course you can look better. It's like the good football team playing the crappy football team. They just look invincible, you know.
Well, and that's it. And you take advantage of those kind of evenings when you get them, and you put on a little display that you can utilize some of your boxing ability. You could get in there. You could slip a punch. You could fight. You could land a punch, and it's it's a professional sparring session, if you will, on some levels.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Dax, before we
He's 38 years old, and not an old 38, but he's 38 all the same. He's fought that relaxed schedule, as you mentioned, Bill. And while he's not in the ring, he's rumored, to be enjoying the spoils of being a champion rather than being in the gym working hard in between these fights like he should be. Those factors we've seen in the past can make a young 38 an old 38. We've seen it happen to 28-year-olds.
No doubt.
The last thing is Joseph Parker is rumored to be fighting Alexander Dmitrienko, and that's going to be his last fight before Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua is signed.
Well, I thought that who's Anthony Joshua going to fight then next?
I have no word on that, but I just got the word today about Joseph Parker.
Well, that ought to be a good one. But I just wanted to comment on your point about Stevenson being lazy. That's the difference between Bernard Hopkins, and although I was never a huge fan of Bernard, I do respect him, especially the alien version of Bernard, because this is a guy that just never took a shortcut when it came to training and staying in shape, similar to the guy I don't talk about on this show. Although I'm not a big fan of Floyd Mayweather, I've always given him credit for staying in shape and not ballooning up in between fights. And speaking of ballooning up, Dax, before we let you go, what was your thoughts on seeing Marcos Maidana in the corner, or at least in the first row, with his brother fighting Fabian Maidana this past weekend? And Maidana looked like he's enjoying retirement. He looked like he put on a few pounds and was kind of busting out of his shirt in a negative way. What's your thoughts on that? Will we see him return? Do you think he's going to make a comeback fight, or do you think he likes going out the way he did?
I knew a few months ago Maidana was that big, but if Marcos Maidana stays retired, and he does, from what I understand, he's taken his money that he's made not only with the Mayweather fights, but his career at 140 pounds and against Broner, etc. And he's invested it. He started some businesses, and he's spending a lot of time with his family. If that's what he chooses to do and stays away from the ring and doesn't come back, more power to him, because the sport of boxing, the goal is to, the whole is to accomplish your goal, and almost every fighter's goal is to become a world champion, make some money, do better for themselves and better for their family. And Marcos Maidana seems to have done that, and you know what? This is what you do. Now you're a young man. Boxing's a young man's sport. You retire, you spend it with your family, you use your money, you live a good life, you put a little in the bank for your children, and you're leaving the sport with all your faculties. What more can you want? I mean, that is the perfect game plan. That's the perfect ending to a career. And when we speak about somebody like Ricardo Mayorga, just a few minutes ago, and then we see Marcos Maidana in this position, it kind of puts a smile on my face to say, this guy did it the right way. He had some success. As long as he doesn't come back, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, but listen, the Maidana is an exception, because his style was the kind that was exciting. But a lot of fighters are choosing that safety first, and it's all great for them, their families, their future. It's great. But they're not investing in the sport. And one of the reasons that it is affecting the sport and killing it, a slow death, truthfully, is that there is no league to protect the sport itself. In the UFC and in NFL and NBA, etc., the leagues protect the sport. Their players get a lot of money and all of this stuff, and they adjust it. They protect the players and the sport. That's what boxing is missing. No one's there to protect the fighter, so the fighter is forced to protect themselves. So on one hand, I can't criticize a fighter for looking out for his safety and the future of him and his family and generations to come. I can't knock the guy. I would do the same thing. I'd be lying if I said any differently. But when you look at the other side of the coin, when I put my boxing purist hat on, who's protecting the sport of boxing? No one is anymore, fellas. Nobody's protecting boxing. And the only way it used to be protected was the pride of the fighters that participated. Am I wrong, Sal?
No, you're right. I mean, there was a different mindset, a different mentality, and we say it all the time, but it gets redundant, and I know we don't want to rehash it. But when you look at the era where Marvin Hagler would call out to fight anybody that wanted to challenge him, and Sugar Ray Leonard would rise to the occasion. Roberto Duran wasn't afraid of a man on earth. He wanted to fight and beat them all. These were legends. That's why we're talking about these guys 30 years later. Do you think we're going to be bringing these guys up, this crop of fighters today, in a conversation so favorable that they had so many fights that just stood out in our minds from those boxers of the yesteryear, because they made an impression. They were the type of competitors, the passionate, the fire in the belly, the win or die kind of fighter. They put it on the line.
And
boxing has always been known as, or used to be known as, a means to an end, and that term is more or less self-explanatory. When there is no other way to make any money, there's no other way to stay out of trouble, there's no other way to feed your family, you turn to the sport of boxing, you lay it on the line, you risk your health, and you can make yourself a payday. We speak about it all the time on the show, about how fighters of yesteryear, it was actually a craft. Even the ones that had these amounted losses, they were professional opponents. It's a different mindset today. The safety first, in a way it's kind of good, and then of course it's not, because it's taking away from the excitement. It is a brutal sport. It's the hurt game, even though it's not a game. I speak to my son, or I used to speak to my son about the movie about James J. Braddock, Cinderella Man, and he was saying to himself, why didn't he quit? He could have had another. I said, well, something, son, you don't know this now. When you get older, you will. Once you become a family man, and once you have children, and you have a wife, and you have a home, and the only way to put food in your children's stomach and to put a nice home over their head is to go out there and risk yourself. You're going to do that because you'll do anything for your family, and that mindset isn't quite there anymore, because it's a different time. It's a different age. People nowadays are more about the flash. So that's, Sal, those are the difference between those eras and now. We don't have as many family men in general as we did at one point in time. So boxing and the world is a different place, not only just the sport.
No doubt, brother. Hey, great report as usual, Dax, and we'll try and get a quick report from you on Wednesday, because we'll only be here on Wednesday, and then we're back on Tuesday, my man.
All right, everybody, and enjoy your day. And are you getting a trailer?
I'm going to be in the pits, I'll tell you that. I'll be in the pits.
You'll be wearing half shirts with your stomach sticking out.
Listen, I'm gonna be like those guys. I was trying. What I should have done is gotten all kinds of advertisements to wear on my shirt, on my back. But I'll try and get some photos, and I'll be working a pit crew. I'll be in there and doing some interviews and stuff like that. So it ought to be interesting. I'll tell you all about it.
Ricky Bobby. I'm going to start calling you Ricky Bobby.
Hey, thanks for the pat on the back, Dax. I know I can rely on you to keep my spirits up, man.
You know what? Just understand, if you ever have a cut, you come to me, and I'll be the first one to pour salt.
I know. That's why I love you, Dax. That's why I love you.
All right, everybody, enjoy your day.
Take it easy. That's Dax, always looking out for me, always looking out. Hey, you got any final thoughts, Sal?
No, like I said, Bill, I know we talk about the state of boxing and the state of Jersey, the state of Georgia. I'm just teasing. But I think that the state of boxing will sustain and will evolve and will constantly, there's a minutia going on. It's working its way through the maze, and it'll still be a viable sport that will gain interest, attract some younger fans, and they may be dissipating in the long run, but you never know. I think there's still life in professional boxing.
It's a good point, and I'm sure there is, but the difference is what boxing used to do. Boxing would make a lifelong fan. Once you got bit by that boxing bug, you were a lifelong fan. Like yourself and myself and Dax and Coach and all of the diehards that follow this show pretty much are all know what we're talking about. I'm sure there's a handful of people that actually hate me and watch this show because they don't like me and they don't want to miss it, which makes no sense, because if you're watching out there and you don't like me, don't watch it. I mean, it's that simple. Stop criticizing, just don't watch. You don't have to. But the fact is today, it's creating a short-term fan, and I think in the long run, that's really going to be the death of the sport, at least the death of it as we know today. MMA, UFC is clearly taken over. It's something that I hate even saying. I'm not a big fan. I don't follow it, but facts are facts are facts, and the majority of the people I talk to, and that they're around you every day, Sal, that people tell you.
I know, but I mean, Georgia's a big MMA
That's
state.
not just Georgia.
Ultra fighting.
It's not just Georgia.
I couldn't. It's amazing. It really is
Yeah,
how big it is. I say to some of the people, we're going to show a fight at the pizzeria. They'll mention, who? MMA. I have no clue who they're talking about.
No.
But it's a big sport down south. It's a big sport throughout the area. And you know what? Maybe there's going to be at a certain point in the MMA evolution that the feel good, the Sagers and everybody else may change some of the rules, may change some of this, and they'll nullify some of the things that we see and appreciate about that sport today. I don't know. But like I said, you and I talk off air all the time.
They won't, because because the numbers control it. The numbers and the money controls it. And why break it if it ain't? Why fix something?
Well, boxing was never broken. The sport.
Boxing's broken
evolved
now
from the Roman Empire days with the castanets and everything else.
Yeah, but boxing's broken now, so.
Well, it is. But I mean, like you and I discussed, you want to get boxing back on the map, take some of the things out that they've installed, have the weigh-ins during the day of the fight.
But you see,
get
that's
back a 15-round
But
championship.
wait, you see, but you're right. But here's the problem: when you say take it out, they should do this. Who's they? Who's going to take it out? In a sense, what we're asking is for people to take their claws out of the cash cow. The sanctioning bodies, the greed factor, the promoters, the execs at the networks that don't know a left hook from a friggin' fish hook. These are the people making the decisions for the sport. That's why it's broken. And again, although I'm being critical of a fighter who's safety first, I get it. And I don't disagree with the fighter on a personal level. I don't disagree with Terrence Crawford, just having fun out there and getting a win and making $1.3 million. I don't disagree with it. I would have done the same thing. But when I put my boxing purist hat on, it's the reason why the sport is failing. It's the reason that people try to emulate Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, who claims that he's the best ever. Give me a break. He might have been, or may have, will go down in the history as being a successful guy financially. Aside from that, I can't even remember one fight he's been in. Not one. Not one exciting fight has he ever been in. Anyway, I have a final thought. It's a sad one. This past weekend, actually on Friday, it was reported, and I didn't mention it, and I regret it. But one of the greats in sports, all of sports, passed away. We lost Dennis Green at 67 years old. He died of a massive heart attack. Dennis Green, in case you don't know who he is, if you're just a diehard boxing fan, was a successful NFL football coach, primarily with the Minnesota Vikings. One of the reasons I admire Dennis Green, and one of the reasons I wish a lot of people would have listened to some of the things Dennis Green have said in the past, it kind of rings true today with a lot of the racial tensions that are going on in our world today, specifically here in the United States, between African Americans and the white folk. Dennis in the NFL implemented a rule I guess it's been almost 20 years now, where if an owner was looking for a new head coach, that he had to interview a black coach, to make it seem like there was no prejudice there. That was their way of trying to show that that there was no prejudice in the NFL, which, there's prejudice in this whole world, unfortunately. And Dennis Green seemed to be the guy that was always getting interviewed for these coaching jobs. And one day he came up and did a press conference, and it's out there on YouTube. You could check it out. And Dennis Green got up in front of that podium and said, listen, I appreciate all the NFL teams that are interviewing me for the head coaching job. However, I want to be interviewed for a head coaching job because of my ability to be the best at that job. I don't want to be interviewed for that job just because I'm the resident black guy in the NFL that has to be interviewed just to, satisfy the NFL. I want to get those jobs because I'm the best man for the job, not because of the color of my skin. And when he said that, it should ring home to a lot of people. In this world, you want to be acknowledged for doing great things because of what you do, not because of the color of your skin, not because of your religion or any other belief. People want to look at you for what you do good. Dennis Green was a great coach, was one of the most winningest coaches through the last, I think the stat was from 1980 to 2000, was one of the winningest coaches out there. And he will sorely be missed, not only in the NFL, but I think in the world. I wish more people listened to some of the things that Dennis Green said and understood why he said them. And I think this world would be in a lot better place than it is as of today. Anyway, Dennis Green will be missed, and our condolences from the Billy C. family goes out to Dennis Green's family and friends. Dennis Green no longer with us. But anyway, I wanted to get that out. I should have said it last week, Sal, but Dennis Green made a big impact on me in how I look at things, and was a damn good coach anyway. I know it has nothing to do with boxing, but Dennis Green will always be remembered. And that speech he gave was so true, But anyway, didn't mean to end on a sad note, but it is what it is. And I hope a lot of younger people can search that and see what Dennis Green meant and how he presented it and why he said it. And maybe it would help them today. Anyway, Sal, we're not going to be doing a live show tomorrow, but we will be back better than ever on Wednesday. So I'll look forward to that, my man.
Me too, Bill. That'd be a great show, and as all of them are, and I look forward to it, my friend.
All right, for everyone else out there, make sure you tune in Wednesday morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.